Fitch Ratings has affirmed Ecobank Transnational Incorporated's long-term issuer default rating at B- with a stable outlook. The affirmation reflects its recent resilient performance and the progress made with respect to the integration of Oceanic Bank Nigeria, among other factors. To get more on this, we are joined on the line by Denzil De-Bie. He's the Director, Financial Institutions at Fitch. Denzil, it's great to have you on the show today. And of course, you did mention quite a number of positives for keeping the rating as it is. You've talked about their resilient performance, you improved risk management, but there are some other factors that you also highlighted with respect to capital, and that's an area that ETI probably needs to address, even though they have raised capital recently. But overall, can you just speak to that point?
Certainly, Wole. Good afternoon. As you said, the Ecobank Transnational has been doing Transnational Incorporated has been doing a lot of good things. The main negative factor that we find at Fitch is the low levels of Fitch core capital, which is effectively tier 1 with some of the less material aspects stripped out. Now, they have had some injections of capital, notably from the IFC and from the Public Investment Corporation of South Africa, but that's lifted the Fitch core capital ratio to about 8.5%. Now, just by contrast, when you look at the Nigerian banks, the top-rated Nigerian banks are operating with Fitch core capital ratios around the 20% mark. So it is quite a low number. There are some mitigating factors. There is some convertible debt in there from Nedbank, which is a major South African bank, which was due to convert in 2014 if they elect to do so. At the moment, it's just debt and potentially poses a refinancing risk, but if converted, it would boost capital to some extent. But it does operate on quite thin levels of capital and has done for a number of years.
All right, but how are you reading the Nigerian market in particular? Of course, we know that ETI is in 32 African countries, but clearly Nigeria is a huge market for them. I think it's about 40% of their profits. Your thoughts on the market in Nigeria and the fact that many people are saying we've turned the corner with respect to the crisis. What's the outlook in your view?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of that's true. I mean, for Ecobank, it's 40%, 44% of group assets. The acquisition for them was very good. Obviously, Oceanic, a failed bank, but when it was taken on by AMCON and then sold to Ecobank. Now, Ecobank was a good operation in Nigeria, but it was very small and it lacked scale. Now, what Oceanic brought to it was a significant retail franchise. And what we saw in Nigeria was a lot of the deposits stayed in the banks, even the failed banks, partly because of the government guarantee, but also the way the central bank handled the crisis, and it kept confidence in the sector. So for Ecobank, they've now got a much larger bank, and they've got a sizable retail deposit franchise, which should lead to stronger profits. In terms of the Nigerian environment, obviously 2009, 2010 Nigerian banking crisis, a lot of banks were in a lot of trouble. You had the failures, but even the banks that were safe had significant NPLs, and potentially that could have been a long-term problem in the Nigerian banking sector. The actions by the Central Bank of Nigeria and Governor Sanusi, through the inception of AMCON, have been very positive for the sector. It's cleaned up the balance sheet of many of the banks. They did take some profit hits in 2009, 2010, but essentially they've got quite good, clean balance sheets at the moment. Going forward, with further loan growth, NPLs could come back, but in the current interest rate environment, that's probably unlikely.
Okay, well, of course, it's tough to call that. But let's move on to, come back to ETI and some factors that I think could be important in looking at the short to medium-term outlook. And one major one for me is the fact that they're in so many countries, 32 countries in all. And I think even in the rating release, you did point to that as something that could drive some volatility in their earnings. Can you just talk to us about whether that is a good thing or a bad thing, the fact that in so many countries in Africa.
Sure. Well, the answer is both. On the upside, it does add an element of diversification to the bank. So even though Nigeria was the biggest operation when the crisis hit, and they took a lot of pain in Nigeria, the group itself actually reported profits, small profits, but the other countries did manage to support the ETI franchise to an extent that they still made profits. Obviously, 32 countries in Africa, some of those operations are quite small, and there is obviously an element of operational risk that goes with maintaining that. And obviously, the African franchise is quite strong, but diversification in Africa doesn't always work as you'd expect it to. You do end up with a lot of contagion. It could be region by region or countries and neighboring countries, which could actually amplify any negatives in any country.